690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Whole lot of stuff we got on for you today as we are creeping ever closer to Election Day. Yes, we're definitely going to be delving into some of those kind of last gasp examples, guess for lack of a better term, and glimpses inside of campaigns, how the fundraising goes going specifically. Yeah, we'll still keep our eye on polls. You can bet your bottom dollar. But this idea about how many people are actually willing to put their money where their mouth is, well, interesting, useful, and may show what effort and juice, so to speak, is left in each of these campaigns as we are in that last stretch. Again, a whole lot coming out of there as we already have some people joining us over on the social media, including Ida Beza Gardner. Hello to you as well. And the wave, I do see that, as we also have Flaco Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner, and Richard Janusik over there on the social media. Do appreciate that. You don't have to drop a like and react, but if you appreciate us being able to have this discussion about the things that affect us here in the borderland, well, we would appreciate it in its own right, as it does help us with all those algorithmic things that make it so that we can get more people involved, more of the discussion, more of the input, and more maybe actually trying to figure out things locally. I'm not going to hold my breath in that last part, but it's good to have goals, right? And our goals definitely are today to talk about a variety of things. So elections, yes, that'll be the next month, probably well beyond. Let's call it probably the next couple of months. Like, okay, hard and heavy, fast and furious through November, obviously. And November 8th, Election Day, which... the amount of events happening around the day. Hell of a busy season we got coming up for you. But even then, after that, again, have a sneaking suspicion that we will have a runoff or date. Hopefully not that many. Probably a runoff or two, but again, not going to hold my breath on that either. That we're going to have one definitive candidate in all of the very crowded races that are on the ballot, particularly the local ballot. So not so much on any of the national or really the partisan ballots. In general, going to be pretty well settled because usually two candidates. There's at least a couple where there is a third party or two, including the higher I get on the ballot, the more candidates there seem to be, or I guess nominees at this point should be the way I'm describing it. But locally, there's some crowded fields. Again, 17 city council candidates spread very unevenly across the 4 city council races we are dealing with. So I think it's reasonable to assume that probably 1 or 2 of those, potentially more, again, not going to hold my breath, going to go to runoff. So yeah, expect to be hearing that election music that we got for you a decent way through the end of the year. I mean, honestly, we've got runoffs. I think they sent them usually for December, but I'll have to double check my dates and make sure I'm not misinforming you, because that's the last thing we want to do in this program, again, as we seek to make sure to talk about all this. John Brown's been saying, go on vacation for 3 weeks, come back and find out you've been on vacation for as long as I have. I don't know where you've been tuning in, dude, but we've been here. Hell, we weren't even on out yesterday. So if you were assuming that we got the federal holiday or the national holiday, does it technically federal? Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day or whatever the local municipality is calling it these days. Again, still shout out to Chicago with a Casimir Pulaski Day. Not going to try to reignite that argument, but we were here yesterday, so if you weren't, hey, that's on you, buddy. All I'm saying. Again, you can leave your comments over on the social media throughout the program. One of the reasons we mention it, and one of the more useful ways that you can chime in throughout the show, and of course, have that phone line open up a little bit later. So, getting more into the topics, of course, updates on the entire immigration and border security response, particularly the local aspect of it, that has been being mounted by a variety of both, federal agencies that are always involved, but increasing local involvement, including local governmental involvement, with new centers opening, new dashboards available. We've been keeping our eye on that, you bet, as well. But also, is it actually still happening? A quote from our news partners here that we'll get into, there is no more migrant surge, quote unquote. delve into the background on that. Not saying that is a declarative statement on my own, but you bet we'll be delving into it as well. Also, of course, election updates. I mean, the campaign finance reports, like I've been saying, and then a flurry of updates in a lot of different ways involving, okay, let's call it the DA's office in general, but it's not any one particular point. We're going to be talking all at the same time. The August 3rd trial, some of these hearings that have been coming up or have been postponed, status hearings, gag order hearings. It's complicated. So we'll do our best to delve into it and break it down as we can, as we are full throttle all into it today, as we always are. So again, keep the comments over on the social medias. We also have Robbie Flores and Monica Cervantes dropping those likes and reacts. Do appreciate it. And RJ saying specifically on the related to the DA's office in general, it sounds like Judge Rodriguez may have actually made the threatening call, and the judge isn't denying certain evidence of his wrongdoing. Oh, there's so much back and forth on that, and we'll get to that here. But I know that for a lot of people, also the migrant situation, the way it's being generally referred to, at least by the city of El Paso, again, their dashboard actually labeled as the Migrant Crisis Dashboard. At the very least, it's a good thing to put there. And one finer point, I guess I'd gone straight to the data, but actually reading what they have put there in the description of it, I mean, it's tempting to scroll all the way down to the bottom and just look at the charts, graphs, and see what you can glean from the data anyway, and the way they presented it. But they actually say there, it's very interesting the way they put it, that the migrant crisis has been ongoing since 2018. Quoting directly from elpasotexas.gov/migrant-crisis. You can go and see this for yourself if you're so inclined, and goes on to say that the current wave of migrants coming to El Paso began in April of 2022, and the sudden surge we are seeing now started in late August. And furthermore, saying the number of people released to the city of El Paso, I should say, and local non-government organizations, NGOs, i.e. humanitarian agencies, has grown from approximately 250 per day in early August to as high as over 1,000 per day during the month of September 2022. The number fluctuates daily and is currently averaging 900 per day. The city of El Paso places our priority to the individual migrant, providing food and water, connectivity, transportation assistance, and temporary shelter if needed. And some of the questions coming in there, Lou Pinato saying that the border is secure. I'm not making that argument. I'm just saying that the whole argument about that it's not exactly a binary situation. Either the border's secure or the borders are open. That's, I guess, kind of the argument that I'm kind of making. But otherwise, just trying to keep you all informed about what the situation is. So some of the data points to that, I don't know if we're on pace to pass the previous week's high. So the way they delineated the community release by calendar week, it's a little bit confusing in its own right, I will admit, because they have it done as the number week of the year. So last week was week 40 of the year, and this week is week 41 out of the whole 52 weeks out of the year, I guess, concept they're going with. And so they say that for last week it was 6,804 community releases, and that this week we're at, believe the data, it's updated since yesterday anyway, not sure if exactly how many days it includes, if it includes the fullness of yesterday or not, but at about 1,567 to be more specifically. I feel like I'm bringing up another point saying, wish our homeless veterans could have these same resources. I will say the challenges there are somewhat different, including often a lot of times of mental health services being needed. But I'll say in general that, a level of response being on that par, I often know what often comes up here. I'm going to encourage anyone who shares that sentiment to not let this die then, even after this current issue passes, whenever it does. But that is one of the questions coming up today from our news partners over there at KFOX 14. Titled the article, "There is no more migrant surge," quote unquote. Shelters say they are seeing fewer migrants. Specifically quoting some, including John Martin, Deputy Director of the Opportunity Center for the Homeless, and Blake Barrow from the CEO of the Rescue Mission of El Paso. Further quoting from him, specifically saying it's really not the crisis we had in September. And further describing in the story that just a few weeks ago, both El Paso shelters were being overrun with migrants. And of course, the strained resources, people having to be released into the streets, has been more than a little bit of a feature of all of this. And definitely its own problem and its own right and magnitude. Though, one other thing I want to point to as going on with and of course, that's the moment the page decides to die out on me. That's fun. In any case, what has actually been looked at, that there is tracking going on from that City of El Paso page. I think it's the Internet of Maya, not anything on theirs, just to make that clear, that it does appear that there is a tracking of the actual hotel rooms being used, and that's been at a low level for a while now. And James Holmes saying specifically just saw 5 of the full buses leaving for north on US 54 from Hondo Pass. That's just the ones that were caught. I mean, there's a point to be made there, but also City of El Paso. This was one point that I did note out in my notes, even if that web page and my internet is not working out well. Don't worry, I think we're still online, or at least if we're not online, someone give me a call. Is that there's actually 9 buses per day on average, is what the City of El Paso, again, on their dashboard is noting, which I find interesting. That's one of the reasons I do believe that there was that contingency contract and even the contract extension being sought by the City of El Paso. But that, of course, not even the only part of it going on here, including El Paso County's processing center, the one that they are putting over near, I do believe that this is near the airport, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely doesn't look like the one that they were putting near the El Paso Colony Coliseum, I should say. That 75 were processed at the El Paso County's new processing center on its opening day a little bit earlier this week. And media was not allowed inside during that. The Providencia group, the one providing the services there. And 75 migrants on Monday were processed, with expecting to process around 100 on Tuesday, and that it went smoothly so far. This is not a sheltering thing, but rather what has been essentially the really underlying focus and purpose behind most of the local efforts is essentially keep them moving. That's the best kind of short tagline I can give to the entire process, because this is not in general, and I've not really particularly heard of any circumstances in specific of resettlement, finding housing, anything like that, outside of a very temporary nature. And of course, the reason that this has been the backlog is because of, usually the people that have been coming to our sector, specifically the El Paso sector, as delineated by CBP and Border Patrol, had connections somewhere else onward in the United States. So the fact that this group that has been coming through recently, of course, of most notably Venezuelan origin points, does not have those further on connections. So by no means the exclusive or the only part of it, but that has been, I guess, one of the major gumming up of the works, if you want to consider it that way. And Maria Coleman asking kind of the question I'm getting at here. So if I haven't stated explicitly enough, I appreciate the thought, saying if the crisis is over, why open a processing center for millions of dollars? Officials want to treat them with kindness and respect. Why are property owners not being treated with respect? Taxing our homes to care for people who crossed illegally. I pass homeless on Mesa near UTEP daily. I can say okay, I'm not going quite down to the UTEP area on the route I take into the office here, but yeah, I have seen very similar. And RJ clearing up, I think what may have been Louis Panato's point, saying Kamala says, referring to her there, I believe Vice President Kamala Harris, says it's secure. That's good enough for me. Must have gotten too close to the cloud of smoke by Beto's green room, pungent and dizzying. I don't know if there's any on record of them partying together, if that's what you're insinuating, particularly since, I guess Harris has been down to Texas, or at least the plan for it recently, though, of course, the note was made of a not exactly border visit, which, again, open invitation. I'll happily take y'all around and show you what's going on and some of the concerns that locals have. But let's just say I'm not getting a whole lot of callbacks on that offer being made. So, okay, so just to Maria Coleman's question, again, it's not exactly that I say that the crisis is over, but by some of the local nonprofits that are involved in this, taking the standpoint that the surge, the current problem, at the very least is lessening, even again, if the City of El Paso notes that this has been going on more or less crisis level since 2018. So, get further into that and a whole lot more. And I have talked well through this next break. So we got to take that break right now. Again, a lot of details and a lot of stuff we'll continue getting into coming up after this break, getting into more updates, a myriad of updates in a lot of different ways involved in the district attorney's office, the August 3rd trials, and it's a lot. So we'll just do our best to break it down as we can. So stay tuned. We're Talk El Paso after this break. Again, you are tuned in to News Radio 690 KTSM, and I am your host, Andrew J. Polk, for Talk El Paso. Keep the comments going, and we'll get into more of the issues after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for slowing for an accident reported on Lee Trevino northbound, north of Vista del Sol at Vista Lago Place. You could use Loma Land as an alternate route. Watch for police activity reported on Gateway North, just past Montana at La Luz Avenue. Approach with caution. Fire crews are staged for a medical emergency. Gateway West at George Dieter. You could take Esther Lama to Trudia Lane to get around that one. That's your traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
While the Soviet blockade of Western Germany was anything but pleasant, one man known as the Candy Bomber found a way to bring joy to children under communist rule. Be sure to catch this story on the next Our American Stories, on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer can sound a lot like,
building looks mediocre.
Designs need a do-over.
or even,
install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
At EasyCater, food for work is our thing. Maybe that's why we get orders from 93% of Fortune 500 companies. So what's up with the other 7%?
Food is late again.
You should have ordered through EasyCater. Professionally delivered right on time.
EasyCater, huh? Have a pen?
No, I don't have a pen. Does anyone have a pen?
Nah, I'll remember.
Why don't all companies order through EasyCater? Who knows? Order 24/7 from over 95,000 restaurants on EasyCater.com. EasyCater, food for work. It's our thing.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing? I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And a lot of comments coming there, including RJ, Ion Graham, Juan Carlos, Escobar Lazo, Maria Coleman, Flaco Jimenez, James Holmes, Louis Benato, if I didn't say that, John Browselton, Ida Basic Gardner. Dropping those likes and reacts, we do appreciate. Ion Graham, James Holmes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Richard Genesik, Flaco Jimenez, Ida Basic Gardner. Helps with those algorithmic things, meaning essentially how those platforms treat us. So appreciate it in its own right, in its own order. But wherever you got us linked up on there, and it's one of the better ways to do so, I gotta say. I may be biased, we put a lot of effort into it, but let's leave those comments, such as Juan Carlos Escobar Lazo saying, not over by far. Whoever said that is not true. I guarantee that. Referring to, I do believe, specifically, again, the quote referenced by our news partners at KFOX 14, there's no more migrant surge. Again, maybe I'm splitting linguistic hairs here, but I think the point being made by particularly some of the NGOs involved that the way the city seems to be doing it is that there is the migrant surge and there is the migrant crisis, at least using some of the official terminology seeing there. And I guess the point is that we've been seeing a surge in the already kind of elevated situation we've been in that has been the specific overwhelming of resources. But really, it's the interesting argument, I think, the crux of it being that we've been in an elevated state in having to deal with response since about 2018. So 4 years or so coming up on probably more. So I mean, take it for what it's worth and what you will, but I find that to be well, maybe not one I totally expected. Trying to pull back up that dashboard here to give you a little bit more detail on it, because exactly what is going on with it is, well, definitely important. So we'll keep our eye on that as well. But that's not even the only, of course, thing that we're going to be talking about today. Has also a couple other comments coming in, including RJ saying that referring to a Kamala, if she comes and speak to us all, word salad Kamala, say something intelligible. Circular reasoning is one thing she mastered. Circular speak, I think you're trying to do your own. It never is helpful to try and emulate whatever you find problematic with rhetorical style. So I think that's what you're trying to do there, but I'm not going to try to replicate it because, yeah, no, thank you. In any case, also Ion Grimm saying those homeless should cross into Juarez and then cross back over and turn themselves over to Border Patrol or to get all the free stuff that the illegal immigrants are getting. Not sure that would logistically work out for them. I know a lot of intimations that way have been made, but let's just say, given that the deportations and removal are technically at the end of it, and those cases being processed at the very least in our area, last I did see, which I guess has been a minute, but I've not heard any update to these numbers, about 90% denials of that. Not sure what legal repercussions would be. That might be a decent question to ask an immigration attorney or someone that's a little bit more versed in it. What would actually happen in that case? But in any case, decent question to be asked. But speaking of legal issues, again, kind of a flurry of updates coming out as, again, more attention seems to be being made both statewide and, of course, locally. I guess it hasn't really lessened locally when it comes to the many questions surrounding the district attorney's office and, of course, the district attorney for El Paso herself, Yvonne Rosales, and both our news partners there at KFOX 14, some of the updates coming from a little bit earlier this week, including Judge Grant's state extension to review audios, transcripts in the Walmart shooting case, and, of course, the gag order that was set in July. And a lot of this ends up being not directly related to the case itself, but some of the ancillary questions, including, of course, that strange and the provenance questioned email that came out supposedly from the family of one of the victims, Hoffman, the Hoffman family in general, and specifically the district attorney's office has asked for a 45-day extension so that transcripts that surfaced last week, including what someone has already mentioned, RJ, I do believe, and Juan asked me to just call him JCNGO. Fair enough. Do take nicknames, but I tend to go with a display name, so pardon me if a first reference, second reference kind of thing, I think, are the ways we usually take it. But again, back to the district attorney's office. They have asked for a 45-day extension to review transcripts because there was both audio recording and transcripts that, including I think our news partners at KFOX 14 have been playing on their airwaves related to some of the questions involving, again, the emails and what's been going on with it. And bias has also been alleged in some of the filings that have been made as on part of the district attorney's office, and some more interesting response, particularly since, again, the question that was raised or further statements being made about Judge Rodriguez, about whether he's involved with it or not. And so the village of Vinton specifically responding to this, saying, quote, the village of Vinton has no knowledge or involvement in the activities of its municipal court judge, Rogelio Rodriguez, outside of the village, and thus cannot comment on any matters concerning the recent news reports where his name has been mentioned in connection with the El Paso County District Attorney's Office. Judge Rodriguez does not maintain an office at the village of Vinton, and the municipal court is currently inactive. And there's, of course, also the other major update, while that kind of kerfuffle is continuing on. Okay, JC clarifying that he doesn't want to be called JCNGO. Appreciate the clarification. Sometimes text doesn't show intent of words or the tenor in which they're proffered. There's no sarcasm text, I guess is what I'm getting at. But so there is the further update that there will be an update from the federal side of the case. Expected decide if they will seek the death penalty for, again, the indicted on this case by January 25th. And that's some of the reporting going on, particularly from a little bit more statewide Texas Tribune as well, because specifically the state district judge in El Paso says he'll wait to see what the federal prosecutors decide in their case before moving ahead with a state trial for, again, the indicted shooter for that, of course, the August 3rd, 2019 Walmart Cielo Vista shootings. And so there puts a little bit more of, even with we have all of these kind of questions surrounding it and a little bit of confusion and I mean, I got some feedback on the caller we had on last week asking about trying to break all this down. It is not simple. This is an incredibly complicated set of stories and interconnected in its own right. So I don't blame anyone for not being clear on this. But sum total, if you want to take away from today in just relation to the August 3rd case itself and not any of the other distractions, frankly, surrounding it, is that the federal trial is seemingly like it's going to take precedence. And so the state trial does seem like it will be following that in its own order, probably in short order, or I hope in short order. But you can't really rely on any courtroom dramas you've seen previously to guide your experience on this. So anyway, we're going to a lot of comments coming in. And also, we'll, of course, be talking more about the politics coming up as well. So got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, back into our political coverage, some updates coming out of the elections. Again, the last gasp fundraising efforts, the 30-day out reports starting to come out this week, including some analysis happening, of course, at the top level, as always happens. But we'll delve further into it as we can. So again, you are tuned in to Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. More on that and everything else we do, more comments, and open up those phone lines in a bit, but I'll talk more about that after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. The situation inside of local shelters appears to be a lot better today than it was a few weeks ago, even though there are more migrants crossing the border now. Just a few weeks ago, the Opportunity Center for the Homeless and the Rescue Mission of El Paso were seeing hundreds of migrants going into their shelters. At one point, the Texas National Guard even stepped in to help. The organizations are still getting migrants, but it's no longer the same number. The Opportunity Center says they are averaging 10 to 15 people a day. Over at the Rescue Mission, they were averaging 60 migrants a night last week. They say the city's response by opening their own processing center for migrants has really helped them out. And while they are no longer getting the same number of migrants, both organizations tell us they are still in need of donations. You can go to our website, cbs4local.com, to find out what they need and where to drop things off. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Much for slowing for an accident reported on Lee Trevino northbound, north of Vista del Sol at Vista Lago Place. You could use Loma Land as an alternate route. Watch for police activity reported on Gateway North just past Montana at La Luz Avenue. Approach with caution. Fire crews are staged for a medical emergency. Gateway West at George Dieter. You could take Esther Lama to Trudia Lane to get around that one. That's your traffic.
From the CBS 4 Warren Weather Center, I'm forecaster Vania Castillo. We are in for another beautiful day here in the borderland. We're looking at a high of 79 degrees here in El Paso, 77 in Las Cruces. So definitely seeing those temperatures warming up. We are expecting to continue to see those temperatures getting even warmer as we go on throughout the rest of the week. But we're also seeing some drier conditions as well. Not seeing much rain in the borderland for the rest of the week, although come the weekend, we do see that rain returning here in the borderland.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Did you know that Duke basketball's famous or infamous Coach K was nearly fired in 1983? A move which would have kept his legacy from even happening in the first place. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You wash your hands, you brush your teeth, but what about the nose? How do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, flushing out allergens, mucus, and germs. And it's why cleaning your nose, the body's air filter, is the next evolution in daily personal hygiene. People try Navage for lots of reasons: sinusitis, colds, allergies, snoring, things that make it hard to breathe through your nose. But over time, they find that cleaning their nose makes them feel better, a lot better. Over 3 million Navage users have written more than 100,000 reviews, averaging 4.7 stars, saying, "Best product I've ever used," and "Amazing, I love my Navage." Navage helps you breathe better, sleep deeper, and snore less, but the biggest payoff is improved health. Navage is good personal hygiene and can help you stay healthier. At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
As the leaves change, leave the hiring to Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring platform helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all from one place. And Indeed's interview tool lets you schedule and conduct virtual interviews right from their website. Visit Indeed.com/credit. This report is sponsored by Indeed.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Again, whichever works for you is definitely the best place to be. A lot of comments coming in already. Again, RJ, Kathy Kodry, JC, taking the note there. And clarifying that his comment previously about NGOs don't know their numbers. And Ion Grim realizing interesting point that was made there about politics and claiming asylum in other countries. I don't think that'll work out the way you might be intending here, but I guess I get the point you're coming at. And RJ saying on the situation involving the district attorney's office, trying to remember a DA screwing up a mass shooting case only because this is going to be embarrassing. Hope this doesn't go national. Well, I know there are some out there that call themselves like the national news show of Texas already reporting on this. So, depending on your definition of national, I think you mean the sincere definition of national. Cloudy crystal ball, but I'm just saying it's been called already. Why wasn't this going statewide? And that's already happened. I'm just saying if things continue in the same pace that they are, I might not be that surprised. But hopefully not, knock on wood, because this will be, again, even be calling statewide, one of the most significant pieces of litigation and prosecution in recent memory at the very least. But, of course, as we are getting closer to November 8th, yes, we're continuing that countdown. That means we are, of course, continuing our election coverage. And as promised, there's more details coming out now about kind of the last gasp that's going to be happening ahead of the actual election day. Of course, there's going to be more donations, more things like that happening, a lot more fundraisers, because money, unfortunately, drives a whole lot of, particularly those undecided. I think a lot of people were still very focused out of the debate here. We got more clips coming up for you tomorrow on the show as well from the debate, delving into some of the more specific issues that came out since, it doesn't seem like we're getting another one. But more specifically, some of these fundraising numbers show, again, it doesn't exactly equate one-to-one money to votes, as has been shown by other polling, in which O'Rourke has been pretty consistently behind the ball, so to speak. Abbott continuing to lead, of course, Republican incumbent Governor Greg Abbott being challenged by Democrat and former El Paso Congressman Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke. Some of the totals coming out and some of the calculations of the total, again, just illuminating in their own right. Of course, there was the college tour that has now been kicked off by the O'Rourke camp starting today, a little bit later, actually, about an hour from now over at UTEP. So, hey, if you happen to be there, let me know what your thought of it is. Obviously, we're not, because no, I'm not going to be stepping out for a half hour at the end of the program. Gosh, can you imagine? In any case, some both of the statewide and local reporting on just over $5 million raised by the O'Rourke campaign from July through late September, and the consistent headline I've been seeing saying that it is outraising the Abbott campaign. Now, I will say that Abbott also has had a pretty significant war chest, but at the same time, whether this proves support or not is another question entirely. I'm sure you all will have a lot of opinions on that specific point. But yeah, just over $25 million is being reported on by our news partners at KFOX 14, sourced from the AP, having raised about $57 million in total this year. So that period that we're looking at over about the last 3 months of that $25 million figure. So that's quite a chunk of change going on into this actual statewide race, of which this has been one other point I've been trying to research, but I haven't found much anything, that there's never been an El Pasoan elected to statewide office here in Texas. This does not mean there have been no statewide office holders. More recently, there was, well, previously anyway, the Speaker Pro Tem for State Rep Joe Moody, though that was removed, and that I do not believe has been reinstated after the whole decamp to D.C. that happened. Feels like another political lifetime ago, but it's been within the last year, give or take. But there was previously like a Texas Speaker of the House from El Paso, but that's not a statewide elected position, if you take my meaning. If that's too confusing, all you need to know is that this race is going to be an interesting one. Of course, we'll keep following it here. And there are still more numbers going to come out from all this. Is just some of the top of ballot. And and RJ asking if we can talk over the election intro. I mean, we've got just some little bit of branded music. We tend to do it out of the breaks instead, so I'll take that as point. I guess you don't like staring at my mug. Maybe we'll get a nice graphic together for you for the social media questions that are coming along with this. So more specifically to some of the numbers looking at for Abbott. Again, reported by the Texas Tribune, in this case, about $25.18 million gathered by the O'Rourke campaign. And for Abbott's campaign, that's not the latest cash on hand figures. Abbott's campaign said he got nearly 25 million. So whether it's, considered neck and neck or not, honestly, it's decently close to what the actual poll numbers are showing, if maybe slightly inverted, but they're within about 10 points, or in this case, $1 million of each other. And there's not the latest cash on hand figures, again, noted by the Texas Tribune here. But Abbott's, I've been saying this decently all along, that, yeah, about a 2-to-1 cash on hand advantage, with about $45.7 million to O'Rourke's $23.9 million from the last report available as of June. So the war chest, that's what I've been really talking about for a while now, from Abbott has been significant. And honestly, I'll be very interested to see how some of the spending comes out towards the end. Of course, we got the 30-day outs, and I can't remember if in these elections we have any more like, the last 7 days or last 9 days or something like that. Sometimes there is in some races. It might be federal that I'm thinking of, though. Point is, that'll be very interesting to see how deep into the well Abbott is willing to go, because he has had, whether or not you would consider it having been a reasonable challenger in the past. I mean, the one that comes to mind offhand of some previous elections, of where there was a lot of enthusiasm and energy from the left-wing side of the aisle, or at least in Texas, was probably the Wendy Davis campaign. And that one was still a pretty well, 2-to-1 vote advantage. So I think we start getting into landslide territory there. And the point I'm trying to get at is that Abbott has never totally drained the tank when it comes to his coffers. So if he's going to be willing to do that or not, I guess might be a better indicator of how truly concerned he is about the closeness of this. And of course, the margin of errors that come with polling is interesting in its own right, and something that we will keep our hand on. I will say that Abbott's campaign from this summer, so the summer fundraising came from, quote, nearly 45,000 contributors, and 81% of all the money came from within Texas. I will say for the O'Rourke campaign, so I get a lot of political text, a lot of block walking texts, because I'm on all the lists, sometimes on purpose. Ida Beza Gardner clarifying that 8-day for local. Okay, so I knew you split the difference. I think I said 9 and 7 day there. So yeah, that sounds about right. So we'll get closer idea for when we get to those races. Haven't delved too much into those. But again, point is that I have been getting a hell of a lot of contact from the O'Rourke campaign, just personally to my phone. I want to say, I don't think it's coming all in from one particular text number. Otherwise, I would have put that on like a do not disturb kind of number. But there are, oh my gosh, I get so many political texts. I kind of called this airstrike on myself, so I'm not exactly complaining, but boy, it's a lot. And they keep coming from different ones here. So I want to say just probably a couple of texts a day from each number involved in this. And it's pretty consistent. I mean, yes, I could unsubscribe. They do offer that, but I'm not sure I wouldn't recommend anyone else do this, is what I'm saying, being on all the lists, because it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but hey, it's content for us and giving me a little bit more insight on, because it can be hard to see what's actually going on inside campaigns and their efforts unless you're kind of involved in some way. I've never signed up as a volunteer. Let me make that perfectly clear, because that's not what I do to order to be able to talk about all that campaigns without any semblance of bias within them. But it's very interesting. It's not a view you can see from just an outsider's perspective without having put down your name of, yes, I'd like updates from these campaigns. That's what I've signed on to. So seeing the work being done on there, again, O'Rourke's campaign, again, quoting the Texas Tribune on this, saying that 500,000 contributors, and that about pretty much all of his contributors, about 98%, were received online. So I think that might be one thing that the O'Rourke campaign is doing pretty well, is utilizing that. But whether or not that actually transfers into vote, a lot. A lot of commentary coming in, including RJ making, and of course, Kathy Godry saying elections have consequences. Absolutely. And RJ, I was watching that interview earlier involving Kari Lake, the Republican candidate for, or the candidate for Arizona state governor, saying maybe if Abbott sees Kari Lake and DeSantis, he'll govern by example. There's no way he loses to Beto, right? Please? Well, this is why, and why I'll say at this point, you better be making sure you go to vote. This is the last day to register to vote here in Texas. So if you've changed address, if you have not clicked that ID when you've gotten a new ID to renew it, now is your time. Go and do it now. Don't wait. Do it now. You can listen to me in the car. It's fine. And make sure that you're actually going to be able to participate in those elections. So this is a further soapbox moment. That soapbox is well worn, and we're probably going to wear it down to the nub by the end of the season here. But hey, we're definitely going to talk about it. That's going to take us through that next break of the hour right now. And of course, coming out of this break, we'll go ahead and get to some more comments and the phone calls. I missed a lot while I was taking a lot of comments and making a lot of points about the election numbers. But coming out of this break, phone lines will be open. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for slowing for an accident reported on Lee Trevino northbound, north of Vista del Sol at Vista Lago Place. You could use Loma Land as an alternate route. Watch for police activity reported on Gateway North just past Montana at La Luz Avenue. Approach with caution. Fire crews are staged for a medical emergency. Gateway West at George Dieter. You could take Esther Lama to Trudia Lane to get around that one. That's your traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
While the Soviet blockade of Western Germany was anything but pleasant, one man known as the Candy Bomber found a way to bring joy to children under communist rule. Be sure to catch this story on the next Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Your engine may be trying to tell you something.
Hello? Yeah, under the hood. Mind opening up?
I need a favor. I've been driving you around for years, and I haven't asked for much. Some gas, a little oil, new tires once in a while. But look, I'm feeling a little run down and sluggish. I just don't have that same get up and go. And I'm afraid I might fail my emissions test. I warned you. Didn't you see my check engine light? So here's where you come in. Head to your favorite auto parts store and pick up a bottle of CRC, guaranteed to pass emission system cleaner. Psst, it's in a box. Just open up the bottle and glug, glug, glug right down the old gas tank. CRC, guaranteed to pass, uses real detergent additives to clean my whole system. I promise I'll feel so much better. And so will you, because guaranteed to pass actually does what it says. Or CRC will double your money back. Hey, have I ever steered you wrong? CRC, guaranteed to pass emission system cleaner. Available at your favorite auto parts store.
Hi guys, it's Andrew with Northbrook Medical Clinic. Are you struggling with erectile dysfunction and sick of the pills? Well, we now have a major medical breakthrough you are going to want to hear about. The wave technology at Northbrook Medical uses gentle pressure waves to repair and open up blood vessels. There are 60 clinical studies, including from Cambridge, showing our technology treats the root cause problem of ED without any pills. If you're ready to put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and regain your love life, grab your phone and call us now. You'll qualify for the assessment, the exam, even the blood flow ultrasound, if you can believe it, totally free. And to the first 10 callers now, you'll get a gift that can produce powerful and rapid results in the bedroom. You're going to love that, trust me, guys. This is a $650 value free to callers now. 915-529-9000. That's 915-529-9000. Guys, put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and get your love life back. Call Northbrook Medical Clinic now to qualify. 915-529-9000.
The El Conquistador Tucson, a Hilton resort, welcomes our neighbors from El Paso. We're your perfect staycation getaway, far enough away down I-10 with amazing hiking trails. This summer, we're knocking 20% off all food and beverage for our El Paso neighbors. HiltonElConquistador.com.
Thinking about an appliance purchase or having something installed, like flooring, kitchen, or bath? You can count on Lowe's for credit options. See the store nearest you. Or go to Lowe's.com for details on the latest credit offers going on now.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point during the program. Of course, we got us on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app or over on our social media pages if you just want to tune in, but also those comments coming in, but also those phone lines open if full up at the moment. Here's a hint. Anytime I mention that or one call ends, going to mention the number whenever we're going into calls or when one line is available. So just be Johnny on the spot with the dialing finger and you'll be good to go. I guess you could use your nose if you've got a touchscreen. I've done that before. Any case, a lot of comments coming in, including Kathy Codry, RJ, Eric von Holstein-Rathlow, John Brazelton, Ida Beza-Gardner, Ione Grimm, and Barbara Carrasco, and more, and JC recently. We'll delve into more of those, but let's take at least a phone call or two before we hit that top of the hour news break. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing
This is Befuddled Ben. The mayor of New York says that, and everybody should get their handkerchiefs out right now. Okay, I mean that's a warning because I'm sure this is going to stir up emotions you have never had before. Says that more than 17,000 asylum seekers have been bused here since April. He's desperately in need of, quote, stop sending buses to New York. New York cannot accommodate the numbers of buses we have coming to our city. The mayor says this is burning through their city's budget. This is unsustainable. The city is going to run out of funding for other priorities. Local government cannot be the solution for a national crisis, especially manufactured crisis. And he's asking the state and local governments to provide more aid, up to $1 billion. Now, have you stopped crying? I mean, you got all your tears out of your eyes, Andrew?
I've been digging through for my smallest violin. Okay, I don't want to sound callous here and saying that, yeah, I can understand having to deal with those issues. But again, just looking at the dashboard here locally. So we're talking about New York City, biggest city in the flipping country, and the boroughs and everything that surrounds it, as having about 17,000 locally. The number, again, from the migrant crisis dashboard from the city of El Paso, total migrants received from CBP, 11,332. So it's not more than that, but let's just compare city sizes here and do a proportional analysis. And yeah.
Well, the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, is at least speaking to the concerns of his constituents. I'll give him that credit.
No, fair enough.
Where our leaders, Judge Samaniego and Oscar Leisure, seem to be more concerned about the illegals, which are costing El Paso taxpayers more each day and are going to cost even more as numbers increase. So, I mean, at least, the mayor is looking after his constituents. Our leaders don't seem to be doing that. We desperately need a change in leadership, starting with getting rid of Judge Samaniego and electing Guadalupe Hiner and ridding us of Veronica Escobar once and for all, and voting for Irene Armendariz Jackson.
And actually, I want to correct myself slightly here. Two other relevant numbers to what we were just talking about here is that actually the city of El Paso, the previous number I gave was just those received directly from CBP. The city, again, clocking 16,051 total migrants served by local, again, city-side welcome centers. And actually, another interesting stat is about how many buses have been sent out. Again, there's a sea of data here, so pardon me for still wading through part of it. And one of them here is the amount of charters that have been sent to New York versus Chicago. The bulk have been sent to Chicago, about 300 buses, if I'm reading this correctly, and approximately 8,700, close to about 8,800, have been sent just from our local area to that. So we're not just locally sourced about half of that then, if these numbers are equitable?
Well, according to this article, it says, and according to Eric Adams, he says the only way to open up the spigot of FEMA dollars is for the governor and the president to declare New York City a state of emergency. That's FEMA's policy. And it seems like, if that's true, why haven't our city leaders asked for that to take the monkey off their taxpayers' backs?
I know that so there has been some low-level declarations. There's actually a discussion to come up, again, sourcing from our news partners as of today at KFOX 14. El Paso City Council will discuss reenacting an emergency ordinance regarding the ongoing migrant crisis and the possible overturn of Title 42. So it came more from that period of time. So at least it's the considerations being discussed. I'm not going to make any predictions about how that discussion will go.
Well, the time for applying for emergency declaration in the state of Texas is already gone, so we can't avail ourselves of that possibility anymore. But Veronica Escobar, it seems like, should be able to advocate for El Paso and get some federal dollars in to take care of the problem that we have as to release some of the pressure on the taxpayers here. I know that FEMA says they will pay us back, but wish in one hand and whatever in the other.
Again, appreciate not saying the full accurate phrase there. I mean, this is going to be an ongoing situation, even if it is, again, some of the reporting coming from local NGOs, particularly on this lessening. It's definitely not over, but whether we're still at this particular high water mark, I guess, is the question for the moment, but it's not going to be over for, again, they're clocking this. I didn't realize they're actually considering this since 2018. So given that kind of consideration here, yeah, I think it's fair to say that this local response in some form or fashion is going to be going on for a while longer.
One last thing.
Briefly,
Wake up, El Paso. We have got to get rid of Judge Samaniego and Veronica Escobar if we want to remain solvent. And let's go, Brandon.
All right. Well, thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one there. And we got to hit that next break now. So coming out of this break, more calls on the line, more comments coming in. I got a bit of a backlog that we'll get to here. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. That number again, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back in a minute. Don't go anywhere. After the top of the hour news.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for slowing for an accident reported on Lee Trevino northbound, north of Vista del Sol at Vista Lago Place. You could use Loma Land as an alternate route. Watch for police activity reported on Gateway North just past Montana at La Luz Avenue. Approach with caution. Fire crews are staged for a medical emergency. Gateway West at George Dieter. You could take Esther Lama to Trudia Lane to get around that one. That's your traffic.
Joe Biden's inflation is crushing Americans. Higher costs for gasoline, painful prices at the grocery store. Just about everything costs us more. And just like Biden, Beto O'Rourke supports higher taxes that would crush Texans even more. What does Governor Abbott say?
In Texas, we are fighting back, cutting property taxes to help homeowners, producing more energy to lower gas prices. And we passed a constitutional amendment to ban an income tax in Texas.
This election, you have a choice. With Beto O'Rourke, it's higher taxes, higher prices, and an economy that's being crushed. With Greg Abbott, it's lower taxes, lower prices, and an economy that's booming.
If you're tired of getting crushed, Fight Biden's inflation. Join us and keep Texas strong.
Greg Abbott for governor.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre says President Biden has been clear about his position on Saudi Arabia's decision to slash oil production.
We are reviewing where we are currently right now, and we'll be watching closely.
Jean-Pierre said Saudi Arabia's decision to slash oil production shows it's aligning itself with Russia. The White House added that it's been clear to all other countries that now is the time to speak out against Russia's war in Ukraine rather than support it. The actress, known for her role in Murder, She Wrote and voicing Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast, has passed away. The family of Angela Lansbury announced she died peacefully at her home in Los Angeles today at the age of 96. Jurors are set to begin sentencing deliberations in the Parkland, Florida school shooting case. Closing arguments were made Tuesday in the trial of Nicholas Cruz. He pleaded guilty to killing 17 students and staff and wounding 17 others at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in 2018. Lead defense attorney Melissa McNeil says Cruz has both fetal alcohol spectrum disorder along with a personality disorder, and the death penalty isn't used on the mentally ill. A Labor Department proposal could help millions of gig workers to be classified as employees instead of independent contractors. Lisa Taylor has more.
That would guarantee them minimum wage pay and overtime. The new rule would lower the bar for being classified as an employee from the previous rule set by the Trump administration's Labor Department. The rule uses information such as how much control workers have doing their jobs and what opportunities they have to increase earnings. Workers who have less freedom are typically considered employees rather than contractors.
Pennsylvania's lieutenant governor says having a stroke changed his life. Democrat John Fetterman made that remark as he runs for the U.S. Senate. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Authorities are investigating after several airport websites across the country were hacked on Monday. NBC's Jacob Ward has more.
They did not get inside things like air traffic control systems or the scheduling systems that would have really brought an airport to its knees.
Officials said flights were not affected, but major airports in Atlanta, Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago all reported partial or full shutdowns of their sites. It's being called a coordinated attack by a pro-Russia cyber group whose members flooded targets with junk data.
The bad news is this is an increase in hostilities we are seeing here, and it seems to be coming from pro-Kremlin hackers whose point here seems to be to try to inflict pain or at least annoyance on countries that have been supportive of Ukraine.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul's campaign war chest has more than double the amount of her GOP rival, Lee Zeldin. Liz Warner reports.
Recent New York State election filings indicate Hochul continues to dominate the upcoming governor's race with $10.9 million in cash on hand compared to Representative Zeldin's $4.5 million. Zeldin did receive recent massive contributions via events featuring Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, along with over $3 million in support from billionaire cosmetics heir Ronald Lauder. According to the latest Siena poll, Hochul has a 17-point lead over Zeldin ahead of the November 8th race.
The University of North Texas is taking a big step toward making unmanned air vehicles a reality. Researchers are testing a flight in an air corridor, which is a pathway for the vehicle with guaranteed communication. The corridor, which stretches from the Fort Worth Alliance Airport to UNT Discovery Park in Denton, is the first in the U.S. The research team, which includes 2 other universities and 8 companies, says unmanned air ambulances and air taxis could be deployed in the next 3 to 5 years. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
How did George Washington, the father of our country, go from a greedy land grabber to what King George referred to as the greatest man in the world? Well, we'll bring you this story on the next edition of Our American Stories. Be sure to catch it on the iHeart Radio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Tired of the news about how everything is costing more?
Everything is stubbornly high.
Us too. That's why we made the iHeartRadio app absolutely free. When you download the free iHeartRadio app, you have the radio stations you love at your fingertips whenever you want, wherever you want, along with millions of podcasts from the news you crave to the true crime series you can't resist. Playlists to fit any mood or activity. And here's the part you don't want to miss. It's all free. Download the free iHeartRadio app and discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love.
John Mellencamp returns to the road, and iHeartRadio is getting you there. We'll fly you and a guest to the tour date of your choice and set you up with VIP tickets to the show. Plus, slap a backstage pass on your jean jacket so you can meet John. And you'll walk away with a sheet of handwritten lyrics to one of his legendary tunes. Prize provided by AEG. Enter for your chance to win now at iHeartRadio.com/John Mellencamp.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in there, and including Kathy Codry, John Browston, RJ, Flaco Jimenez. Who else we got here? Eric Von Holstein, Rathel, Arda Basic Gardner, Ion Grimm, JR, or RJ? JC, sorry. Getting my acronyms mixed up here, or name shortenings. Barbara Carrasco didn't already say that. And a whole lot more. Dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate Lorenzo Colon, Ion Grimm, James Holmes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Flaco Jimenez, Ida Basic Gardner, Richard Janosik, and John Brazelton. Again, if you like what we're doing, as opposed to any particular topic we're on, because we definitely go into very serious topics. So just saying, if you like our discussion of it or our ability to talk about it, that's what we're asking for with the reacts, not necessarily a response to part of it. And the interesting point from Lorenzo saying, if Republicans want to secure the vote, they need to attract the younger people, get on TikTok and similar apps. I know that's been kind of in a background issue. There's been some court cases that we haven't really touched on this program, but it's been percolating out there about some of those Texas laws coming out of the previous legislative session involving the quote-unquote censorship. I say quote-unquote because it's not technically governmental, but also the fact of these having arguably more power than like a lot of governments in the world, these particular platforms, makes it almost a moot point, but I'll stick with it for now because, I mean, there's also anytime government ends up trying to regulate speech or talk about regulation of speech, ends up being, unless it's a blanket, like, yeah, whatever goes, ends up being, we get into like Section 230 stuff there, and that's just a bag of cats. Point is that err on the side of freedom when in doubt is the general rule I go with, and whether or not that's actually applied or not is definitely debate. Kathy Codry saying some things about a $10 per gallon of gas coming soon, I think, reacting to the Saudi Arabia and OPEC news. I've definitely been noticing a lot more, I feel like. Maybe this is just what's that effect when you hear about something or learn about a concept for the first time and then you see it everywhere? Like if you heard about blue trucks or an effect involving blue trucks, you'd start seeing them everywhere on the road. It's not that there's more of them, it's just that you are then noticing them more. Anyway, and John Browston saying, since our city manager is being paid more than the U.S. president, he should be on top of this in this situation involving the migrants, should be asking the federal government agencies for paybacks for bus rides and other expenses. In the defense there, and I don't like being put in this position, but that has been being asked for. Whether or not it'll actually be provided, again, that whole only like 1/3 reimbursement from FEMA has been one of the big things. And RJ saying we can sue big tech. That would be another way to do it because technically it is a civil matter at that point, but again, splitting hairs. So let's get back to the calls now. Again, that number to call full up at the moment, but if you want to squeeze in later, that number is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Gerard over in Central on the line with us here right now. Gerard, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Hello, Gerard. Hello. I'm sorry. I just got a comment on that fool, that Ben, and what's her name, Barbara. I still think the Republicans haven't changed. They're still I do believe they're MAGA. I think they're fascists. This week I saw some immigrants that asked for money. They were starving to death. And I did go out and gave them some cash. Not a lot of cash. I gave them, a few dollars. I said, God bless you, and welcome to America. But one thing for sure is Action Jackson. That's what I call her, Irene Action Jackson. She's a fool too. She ain't gonna beat Irene Escobar. Irene Escobar has a lot of power. She doesn't know she has. I campaign for Irene, even though I may disagree with her in certain things. And one thing that I noticed that I think there's I don't know if the Republicans. I do believe in gun control reform, but people that have mental problems should not own handguns at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's just my opinion there, because they may go, they may snap and kill some innocent people.
And just to clarify here,
the thing about it is that it has Abbott and Costello and that's what I call it, and Corn Dog, which are senators. Did they ever practice law on the private practice, or they always work for the state? And one thing for sure, remember Clyde Lewis show? I wonder if the conservatives were put in their influence. I used to like Clyde Lewis. He used to come out at night. And I remember one topic that came out was the border wall, and somebody mentioned that maybe one of these days there might be chaos in America, because all great civilizations fall. Barbara and Ben, like Rome fell and Greece fell, Egypt fell. A lot of I think they last like 350 years. And America might be on that way of falling apart, And if there is chaos in America in another 10 or 20 years, that border wall I think you're going to see a lot of Americans running towards Mexico. I think that border wall is trying to keep us from keep us in, Americans, just in case there's chaos in this country, And
okay.
Have you noticed right now there hasn't been any chaos in the city since Biden got elected? Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about riots like they had, in Portland and in Minneapolis and other cities. That's what I've noticed. But I think they're trying to. I think you're also using the right wing religions to get your agenda. But I do like to show mercy towards people, and to me I saw Barbara when she was I don't know if it's the same one that campaigned for against when she was running. I don't know if it's the same one that was running for Congresswoman. I thought she was a fool.
Well, fair enough, it's your opinion there, but I just want to clarify one thing, make sure I'm considering what you're saying the right way. You're saying that you campaigned for Irene Armendariz Jackson or Veronica Escobar, because I guess that's the point I'm not too clear on.
Fascists, they want to destroy democracy in America, but the fall of America is going to come, because all great civilizations have fallen. And that's history has proven it, and I hope they have read their history books.
All right. Well, thank you for the point in the call. If we're going to have a conversation here, it usually helps to listen to what's being said on the line there, but appreciate it for what it's worth anyway. I'm going to assume that it sounded like you mixed up the names that you were talking about. You used the Irene name for Escobar here, because we do have the two candidates. The Republican nominee is Irene Armendariz Jackson, and the Democratic incumbent for the Texas 16th congressional district is, of course, Democrat Representative Veronica Escobar. So I'm thinking that was a mix-up here, but well, again, you're entitled to that. But let me just say, on that whole, among the many things just brought up there, on the whole idea of fall of empires, and I mean, yes, this is something that I have independently studied. I mean, I'm a student of history in a lot of ways, and there's a lot, not necessarily that one empire crumbles, another one rises, but the influence changes. I mean, it's kind of seen as an arc, so to speak. And the arcs often overlap. And sure, there's a lot of analysis coming out right now about the potential for a Russian or more likely Chinese potential rising of this century. I mean, they're definitely pushing for it. That is not even a question. But we're going to be far afield from our usual topics. Let me just say this on that point here is that a lot of people go straight to like Roman Empire about crumbling and falling apart and existing no more, when really you need to think about it maybe a little bit more modernly, if you truly subscribe to this idea, that think about the Portuguese or even the British Empire, because those are, or even the Dutch, because those are some of the previous empires out there. I mean, Portuguese and even the Spanish had their own domination for a while, and then you had the Battle of Trafalgar when the British became more dominant. But even then, the Dutch, I mean, there's a reason that New York City was previously New Amsterdam. But anyway, that's getting a little bit out of there. So appreciate the point and call for what it's worth. Just remember, if you want to have a conversation about issues, it definitely doesn't hurt to be a little bit more attentive to what's coming through the phone line. In any case, let's take another call here. We do have Barbara on the west side with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call. I don't even know what to say about that gentleman that just now called.
Mm-hmm.
It never ceases to amaze me how vile people who have a different opinion than you have can just get on the phone, on the radio, and he has a right to do it. I'm not even contesting that. But to call people names they don't even know, that's what's wrong with the Democratic Party. They're supposed, we have an open mind. I think I have an open mind. I don't believe I've ever been derogatory towards anybody who's called me, whatever they call me. I'm respectful of their opinion. But, he may not be out there giving his money to people who are starving if this administration had decent, humane border policies. The reason they're out there begging and starving is because of the border policy that this administration has not implemented. He wasn't doing this in the prior administration. I'm sure he didn't have people out there begging and saying they're starving. That's this administration's total willful neglect of our border. And I agree, our country is going to implode, but not because we're careless and not because people don't know what they're doing, but because we have an administration who doesn't care about our country, who doesn't care about our security, who doesn't care about our welfare. That's why we're having the problems we're having. And he talks about the riots in, Seattle and all those places. That's because they want to defund their police. They aren't funding the police. They're not supporting law enforcement. This is doesn't just simultaneously happen, spontaneously, should I say. There's a reason behind it. And the reason is because the Democrats do not believe in law and order. The reason he is out there handing out money is because this administration does not believe in law and order. It does not believe in our border. It does not believe in our sovereignty. And most of all, it does not believe, nor does it care about him, he who's out there giving money away, nor does it care about me, who wants to make America great, who wants to vote for a candidate who will lift everybody up. I don't know how to get that across to people with a hard head. So anyway, I want to elaborate on a few things from yesterday when I called in and I said, go in and vote for policy and not a party. Mm-hmm. And I was not aware, but I discovered this morning that Tulsi Gabbard, the former Democrat candidate for president, has left the Democratic Party.
I think I heard of that. I can't say I'm surprised, to be honest with you.
That's right. And these are some of the reasons. She had a lot of reasons, but I'm just going to say a few of the reasons she left. Because it's radicalized. They stoke anti-white racism. Well, look what's happening in our schools. She's right there. They undermine our God-given freedoms, and they're hostile to people of faith and spirituality. Well, you see what they're doing to pro-life people. You see how they're breaking into their homes. They come fully armed to take two pastors out of their house who have 7 kids, and the other one has 11 kids, and they do this in daylight. It's just amazing. It's astonishing. It's outrageous. And they demonize police. They defund them, talking about the riots that this man was talking about. They protect the criminals, talking about the riots this gentleman was talking about. They weaponize the national security. Look what they've done at DOJ. Parents are now terrorists. Is he a parent? He could be a terrorist. The FBI, what have they done? They've gone, like I just said, after pastors. Look at the DHS. They're not securing our borders. They changed the policies to let anybody in. Is that what he wants? Of course the country's going to fall. When you have 149 countries sending their people here, you have Venezuela releasing criminals from their prisons to this gentleman, I might say, and with the instruction that they come to the USA. And then the DHS sends a policy to Border Patrol telling them, we don't have diplomatic relationships with Venezuela. Therefore, you must catch these criminals at the border. Seriously? And how? Look in their eye and it says I'm a criminal? But this is what this gentleman wants. And open borders, we have had 3.6 million unknown people come into our country in the last 19 months, as opposed to 953 under their prior administration. And that does include the approximate 1 million that we know of, maybe could be more, getaways. They don't want to come and assimilate into our country, sir. They don't want to come here and be part of the fabric of our country, sir. They don't want to come here and advance themselves or have a better life, sir. They're coming in hiding. That's over 1 million. And then they go after she said they go after political opponents. How many people within 100 feet of Trump have been arrested, gone to prison? I mean, and then here you have Clinton, you have Sussman. It was a phony trial in D.C. Who's going to get a fair trial in D.C. if you're a Republican and they're 94, 95% Democrats? Crazy. So at the end, she says, at the end of her talk, she says she invites other Democrats to join her. And this is what she said. And I'm quoting, Democratic Party stands for a government that is of, by, and for the powerful elite. Sir, it's not you, it's not me, it's the people with the money that run this country. And then I wanted to talk another example of the total disregard of the law by the White House. And one of them is a student loan forgiveness that Biden just signed. He was told by the Department of Education that he did not have statutory authority to forgive that student loan forgiveness. Pelosi was out there saying he can't forgive the debt. He can postpone it,
Correct.
He can delay it, but he doesn't have the authority to forgive debt. That's going to take an act of Congress, she said. And now there's a 80-degree turn. That's the best thing he could have done in the world. Look at DACA. Look what Obama did, sir.
Let me just say this. We're getting up on the need to take that next break now. Here, I kind of called this, but like sideways. I didn't directly call it that. I was kind of surprised that the White House was pushing forward on action on student loan relief. But if anyone remembering, longtime listeners of the show will say that this effort to come up, it was technically a campaign item for the Biden administration. But I kind of expected it would be we weren't quite able to get it done here, so you better vote for us for the next election. And I'm just saying that this kind of fits perfectly into that. If you really drill down into it, you get to the point of saying, if it comes to Congress, well, we tried our best, but we just can't do it, so you better vote for us again. So maybe I'm jaded and cynical in a variety of ways, but I'm going to kind of get it into that vein there. So we got to take that next break. So thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew.
Appreciate it. And we got some more questions and comments coming up. We'll get to more of those. We've got to take that break to stay on track here. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for slowing for an accident reported on Lee Trevino northbound, north of Vista del Sol at Vista Lago Place. You could use Loma Land as an alternate route. Watch for police activity reported on Gateway North just past Montana at La Luz Avenue. Approach with caution. Fire crews are staged for a medical emergency. Gateway West at George Dieter. You could take Esther Lama to Trudia Lane to get around that one. That's your traffic.
This report is sponsored by Audible. This fall, find everything you love listening to on Audible. From memoirs and true crime to celebrities and sci-fi, Audible is the home of storytelling, audiobooks, podcasts, and originals. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean. Mike, gotta go.
Yee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-0191.
Here's a message just for the attorneys out there. So you passed the bar, joined a firm, or even built your own. Now are you finding out that you're doing more administration than actual law practice? Lexicon can help. Lexicon is a legal technology provider with over a decade of experience streamlining administrative tasks like timekeeping, billing, and more, so you can focus on maximizing billable hours and increasing client satisfaction. Call 855-4-LEXICON or visit lexiconservices.com/go to learn more.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on most of those. There are technically other pages we even share that on, even within those. So honestly, wherever you're at, the right place for you to get at. And the comments come in primarily over on like the, again, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Twitter is more of a DM response, reply kind of thing. So we can't pop up those on screen. But hey, if you want to leave us a message, I do try to check those and bring them up as they are relevant. So again, whatever works for you is the best. And of course, we got that phone line open full up at the moment. Again, no surprise at this point during the show. But if they want to get on, squeeze in a little bit later, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. One comment coming up here. Lorenzo Colon asking, what are the unofficial numbers if polls were today? Does anyone know? So as much as I would love for there to be, nothing really locally I can point at here. That's why we'll probably get into some of those campaign finance numbers as kind of a backdoor polling, so to speak, showing how many people are willing to put their money where their mouth is and the numbers behind it, which is, it doesn't equate exactly to votes, but particularly for local races, it ends up showing who's able actually to spend money on the things that do get votes, such as offices, canvassing, campaigning, those kind of things. But the most recent one, checking with a 270towin.com here, last poll for the general election here in Texas for governor was the Quinnipiac poll on the 28th of last month. So not exactly the most recent survey of about 1,300 likely voters, a margin of plus or minus 2 points, so about 3%, showing that Abbott at about 53% and O'Rourke at 46%. So one of the wider spreads of approximately 6-7 points, give or take, without 1% being an other. So one of the lowest undecided polls, I'll say, down definitely from a different spread from previous in the month on about the halfway through last month. The University of Texas at Tyler, one that I believe we discussed at the time, showing about a 38-47 O'Rourke versus Abbott campaign, but at about a 15% other or undecided category. So it does seem like, again, if you're just looking at the span of the polls here, that is tightening a bit, But again, polls, grain of salt, etc. There's a reason there's a margin of error, and why we don't just take polls as the election. So let's check out with it. And more comments coming in here. And James Ratcliffe, including saying that Fox News reported that El Paso released 26,000 in September. It's at about 7,000 in New York City, and New York City is claiming an emergency for the city of approximately 9 million. Not sure about the 26,000 you're quoting there. Again, that differs a little bit from the city numbers there. So, I mean, I see where you're talking about the Fox News. I guess if you combine some of the numbers about total migrants received and total migrants served, but again, just quoting directly from the Migrant Situational Awareness Dashboard at elpasotexas.gov/migrant-crisis. You can see it for yourself. But it is about on the order of magnitude for the amount sent to New York City, actually a little bit under there. So some minor discrepancies of numbers, but within an order of magnitude, I'll say that much. But more comments coming in. We'll keep those going. But let's get at least one call in before we hit that next break. We do have Frankie and Mesilla with us on the line right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
This is outrageous. I kick it. This is not funny anymore, Andrew, and everybody else out there in the southwest border. This is not funny. This ignorant moron, used to be the president, is going out there and saying that, hey, okay, I stole some top secret documents, but so did 4 other presidents before me, including George H.W. Bush, who took 1 million, not 100,000, not 150, but 1 million top secret documents and stored them in a broken down Chinese restaurant with a front door with a broken lock. Now, you people out there that support this ignorant moron, believe this stuff, you cheer this kind of thing, this is, I'm telling you, I'm serious. This is not good. Now, the other thing about it is, what he's doing, he's setting this thing up. I'm telling you, Andrew, he's doing this thing because, and he's already admitted it, hey, if you put me in jail, there's going to be a riot. That's exactly what he's trying to do. This is insurrection 14 different ways to Sunday. That's the first thing I want to start off with. What do you think of them apples?
I've seen some of the conversation going on about the comparison between previous administrations and their presidential libraries and that kind of a thing. Honestly, I'm not particularly qualified to comment on the security or the keeping of the actual documents in previous ones. Of course, presidential papers, and at least part of the current situation I do understand, is involving just the, Presidential Records Act and keeping of it, whether it's actually, classified or not. There is a legal requirement for there to be papers, documents, etc., related to the office of the presidency kept within National Archives. So I know at least part of that is a part of it. But I mean, if there's reason to investigate other presidents, sure, do it. If there's been impropriety, do it, though I doubt it'll happen at this point. But I mean, this is, I do say, and I'm on record and fully stand by me saying that people in positions of power do need to be careful with what they say. Not that they don't have freedom of speech, but they do understand that their words do have impact. So anyone calling for riots, and not saying it's exactly happening in this case, but anyone calling for so is not going to be looked upon favorable by me. I'll say that much.
Oh, okay, he's not declaratively stating, listen, if you put me in jail, I'm going to get all my ignorant followers, my poorly educated nutjob followers, and we're going to riot in the street. No, he didn't say that. It's very subtly projected. Now, this is insane, Andrew. I mean, get some lawyers on your program and talk about this kind of thing. Now, before I finally say that, I want to say a terrible, awful news. Angela Lansbury died. And I wish I was born earlier because she would have been my girlfriend. And one final thing, what Rex said. That's all I want to say.
All right. Well, thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
All right, bye.
All right, have a good one there. And we're going to go ahead and take that next break now as well. More comments coming in, more calls in line. We'll get to more of that. Again, the number to call if you want to get on is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. Today is the deadline to register to vote in Texas for the upcoming election. Early voting for the midterms is going to start in El Paso on Monday, the 24th. Some of the big races are for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and a number of city council seats. Now, if you aren't registered to vote and want to do so by tomorrow, we have everything you need to know on our website at cbs4local.com. And while you're there, you can find sample ballots and early voting locations. If you plan on early voting, you have until November 4th to do so. 3 people are dead following a head-on collision in Far East El Paso. The El Paso County Sheriff's Office says all 3 people ranged in age from 18 to 20 years old. Deputies say the crash happened on Ascension Road, and the 3 people who died were all in a 4-door sedan that hit a pickup truck early Monday morning. The truck driver went to the hospital with minor injuries. There's no word yet on what led to the crash or the identities of those involved. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Watch for slowing for an accident reported on Lee Trevino northbound, north of Vista del Sol at Vista Lago Place. You could use Loma Land as an alternate route. Watch for police activity reported on Gateway North just past Montana at La Luz Avenue. Approach with caution. Fire crews are staged for a medical emergency. Gateway West at George Dieter. You could take Esther Lama to Trudia Lane to get around that one. That's your traffic.
From the CBS 4 Warren Weather Center, I'm forecaster Vania Castillo. We are in for another beautiful day here in the borderland. We're looking at a high of 79 degrees here in El Paso, 77 in Las Cruces. So definitely seeing those temperatures warming up. We are expecting to continue to see those temperatures getting even warmer as we go on throughout the rest of the week. But we're also seeing some drier conditions as well. Not seeing much rain in the borderland for the rest of the week, although come the weekend, we do see that rain returning here in the borderland.
This report is sponsored by Audible. This fall, find everything you love listening to on Audible. From memoirs and true crime to celebrities and sci-fi. Audible is the home of storytelling, audiobooks, podcasts, and originals. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com.
Joe Biden's inflation is crushing Americans. Higher costs for gasoline. Painful prices at the grocery store. Just about everything costs us more. And just like Biden, Beto O'Rourke supports higher taxes that would crush Texans even more. What does Governor Abbott say?
In Texas, we are fighting back, cutting property taxes to help homeowners, producing more energy to lower gas prices. And we passed a constitutional amendment to ban an income tax in Texas.
This election, you have a choice. With Beto O'Rourke, it's higher taxes, higher prices, and an economy that's being crushed. With Greg Abbott, it's lower taxes, lower prices, and an economy that's booming.
If you're tired of getting crushed by Biden's inflation, join us and keep Texas strong.
Greg Abbott for governor.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Your quality of life and your retirement are under attack because the Fed and the administration has chosen to fight the wrong war. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to The Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know.
Hey, look. Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments and a lot of things we're working on for you, and a lot of stuff coming in. Of course, that phone line is open, if full at the moment. The number to call if you want to squeeze in before the end of the program, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Let's just go ahead and jump right back into the one question coming up. Let's see here. Kathy Codry asking specifically, want to know why, referring to, I believe, President Biden, purchased $290 million worth of radiation infusion biomeds. I think you're referring to, it was a release from the Department of Health and Human Services buying N-plate. If I'm pronouncing that right, I'm sure it's not Neplat or something like that. Or I'm guessing it's not one I'm immediately familiar with. We've talked previously about some of like the iodine tabs that have been issued in other places around the world. So, I mean, I guess if there are questions that you have, I'm not totally qualified to answer them, but I'll just say this from my perspective, that I guess it's I have a kind of a have it and not need it, then need it and not have it kind of mentality. And given the amount of saber rattling, I guess that doesn't seem totally imprudent. Though, of course, when you're talking about at this level and that amount, there's a opportunity cost question about what did this buy as opposed to something else. But yeah, I guess I don't have that much of an issue with it, even if I guess that, the natural questions about, wait, why are we getting this? Are we truly that certain about other events going on? Yeah, I get that level of concern, but again, that's just my personal perspective on it. Any case, let's go to those phone lines now. We do have Joe on the east side here with us right now. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hi there. I have a question that how much do the candidates keep of the money that they raise for their program? I'm trying to find the words.
Of the campaign contributions, what happens if there's some left over after the election, essentially?
Yeah, and how much are they actually allowed to keep and put into their bank accounts?
So it's a more complicated question. Not that anyone thought that this would be a simple answer, but it's actually we've had reason to look into this previously, and it's actually a surprisingly complicated question because, I mean, obviously in some certain circumstances, looking statewide specifically at this, such as with Governor Greg Abbott, obviously he has maintained a war chest. So in his case, he's just kind of kept it in there to keep advertising, campaign expenses, etc. going on, which is why he's got the more sizable amount despite the technically less fundraising numbers than O'Rourke so far this election season. But of course, what happens if someone is doesn't actually get elected to office? I mean, that's the more natural question I think that you and most people would probably be wanting to get at. And that's where the complicated answer comes in, because strictly speaking, it cannot be put straight into their own bank accounts. That violates several things of, the FCC, FEC more specifically, but it's also muddied from there, because if someone is saying, well, I don't intend to run for this position again, and I've got some thousands, or I mean, in certain cases we're discussing here could potentially be millions. Don't know that for sure until we get past election day, essentially. What happens with those? So it can't go straight into their bank accounts. They could hold it in that same election committee for a next election, similar to what an incumbent might do. But actually, if they are saying no, I'm done with politics, what happens then? The question comes up, and essentially the research I've found from a variety of different sources is that they can either donate it back to a central campaign or committee, donate it to a different campaign within limits, of course, campaign finance laws and all of that, or they can put it out to charity. And that's where kind of the wrinkle comes in, because anyone who's done a concentrated look at quote unquote charities, because obviously there are a lot of organizations I've discussed with that have very set and serious purposes, but then it starts getting almost into, the best analogy I can make is with the whole art market. And that may sound like a non sequitur, so stick with me here for a second, because art as donated is often a tax haven, because no one is actually saying well, yes, I am donating $10 million, or I can buy this piece of art, make sure that it's valued at $10 million and then get credited for it. But they're not even necessarily always donating it. They're donating it to maybe a foundation or a cause that they then have some control over. So it essentially kind of sticks on as an asset. So that's where the waters get muddied, and where kind of, data reporting becomes important, because keeping people honest about this and making sure that, oh, sure, it got donated to some organization that the candidate happens to be the head executive of and manages those funds still, because then it kind of doesn't really fit in that kind of vein of what you and I would consider fairly and actually donated now, would it?
Well, what I'm asking is, let's say that O'Rourke is going to lose, and he's got $25 million in his campaign chest. Does he get to keep that, or some of it, half of it, all of it?
Okay, so again, simple answer and strict reading of the law here, no. It does not get to go flow into his personal coffers, but that's kind of what I was describing there, and where it can get a little bit muddy and a little bit insincere in my mind is that, sure, they could donate it to a foundation, a charitable cause, but if they're then still in charge of that charitable cause and on the payroll of it, does it really count? I mean, there have been investigations in this kind of thing, but whenever you start talking about millions or tens of millions of dollars, it's a different set of rules. I'll say that.
Okay. All right. Well, that helps me. I appreciate your information, and that's my question. So thank you very much.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. You have a good one. All right, getting back on the phone lines here, squeezing it what we can before the end of the show. We do have Andrew on the west side with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thanks. I'll be brief, Andrew. Thank you very much. As Barbara said, these people that are suffering out there, they would not be suffering if Biden would enforce the immigration laws.
I want to say it's probably going to be more than just the immigration laws because, and this is the issue I have with the enforcement only approach, is that it's essentially the take the problem and push it over there. I mean, it was well noted even during the Trump administration that it wasn't necessarily that numbers were less, that being let in here was less. And so the humanitarian issues were happening south of the border. Now, I know there are those out there that don't care about that part, but it weighs on me. So it can't even just be the enforcement part of it. It has to be comprehensive, dealing with what we have here, but also honestly outside of the borders. Essentially a marketing campaign is needed because, as I've been saying for a minute now, the cartels absolutely have one. Sure, it may not be in the format of fancy ads or spots online or whatever have you, but the fact of the matter is they're definitely putting it out there that, oh no, you should totally give us all of your money so that you can totally go and get all the benefits that will totally be there if you just pay us, kind of thing. You have to counteract that. So it's not enough to just have enforcement and hope that it trickles back and hope it gets through, because then essentially you're starting an arms race in terms of not literal arms, though it could involve them, of techniques of smuggling, of those kind of things, if you haven't done something to relieve the pressure. That's why, sure, enforcement of the border is critical. I'm not by any means downplaying that, but it can't only be that, is kind of my perspective on it.
Yes, well, that's one point, and that point leads me to another area. As you well know, that young girl, the 10-year-old girl, of course, they're not going to mention her name, who sought out an abortion due to a sexual assault in Ohio, correct? You heard of that one?
I might be conflating cases. I thought it was a 14-year-old, but yes, I am aware of those kind of circumstances.
Yes. Well, she is a victim of an individual who is, in fact, an illegal immigrant. He's 27 years old. Who knows where he entered? But he is facing deportation. Now, depending on the circumstances, well, in Texas, that is an aggravated sexual assault, and the guy's facing 2 counts. Now, depending on the timeline, in Texas, he could be facing, and this is how serious it is, minimum of 25 years if he would be charged with continuous sexual abuse of a child.
Yeah, I mean, those come with pretty serious consequences, of course, I'm not going to say regular circumstances, though. It's kind of what I mean. And okay, people correct me in the comments. Yeah, 10-year-old Indiana. I think that's the case you're talking about then, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so correct me there. Appreciate it. Again, there's been a couple I'm aware of in that vein. But okay, for this specific one, of course, if it was not to be deportation, a potential of it, there would also be like registering as a sex offender forever. But that may or may not be a moot point if after incarceration, there would be immediate removal kind of thing.
Yeah, well, definitely he's going to do time, I would say. But anyway, that's part of the debate. Okay, this is what's going on as a result of certain policies. Like I said, there's not a whole much detail on this individual because the news media is only reporting the fact that she had to travel to Ohio to get this abortion done.
Okay, yeah.
I believe it was Ohio, yeah.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, also, Andrew, before I leave, we've been talking about the possibility of debate between individuals in the past, correct?
Correct. And I am aware of at least, I get a lot of emails about candidate forums and such. Let me see. I think I got a note on one here because there's actually quite a lot of them, and keeping them in track and making sure I'm giving you all the correct information is a little bit difficult. But I know that, there's a lot of civic organizations out there that have different, say, forums. So they may not ever reach that total debate you're talking about as much as I would definitely love for there to be. But there's more than a couple. There's different fundraisers for different candidates that don't really reach that either. But debates and forums are pretty common throughout here. So we'll try to post up what we can on when we know about those dates and times coming up.
Yes, well, I was referring to something that the late Major Tillman had wanted, a debate or a meeting between, people who call in on your show. And, like I said, I would not mind debating Gerald, Raul, and Eric McNabb and Frankie all at the same time. And as a matter of fact, Frankie could have his cat on hand to assist him,
Fair enough. Well, tell you what, we definitely got to get through election season. I'm going to make no promises about anything in person. I know we had some that were when I have hosted an odd event or two, not necessarily related to the show. People have been wanting to know. If that comes up, I'll be sure to let you all know. But I'm not going to make any promises of other specific show events during this season. So bear with us. We'll see what we can get to after it.
Understood. Well, hey, 4 against 1 is more than fair. But anyway,
Fair enough.
thank you, and I turn the mic over to you.
All right, appreciate it. Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. You have a good one there as well.
Thanks.
All right, tell you what, we can take one more quick call on the line before we have to take that break. We have Jerry in the northwest side of town. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Buenos días, Andrew. ¿Cómo está?
Bien, ¿y tú?
Bueno. Reason why I'm calling is because I'm asking if you had heard last Friday the KVIA Channel 7 reported that a lot of these people that are coming up from across the border have been branded. They even had barcodes on some of them. Did you hear about that?
I've been hearing something about maybe not like actual like branding, like hot iron branding, but hearing things about like ID bands. This Bill's watching a video. This is my fitness tracker replacement kind of thing. So not exactly this, but more like the maybe not jelly bands, but the like wristbands. Like think about it in terms of like the Live Straw bands without it being branded for Live Strong. I'm not trying to implicate them here by any means, but I've heard of something like that being done, like wristbands or like essentially ID badges, but not like permanent physical modification. No.
Okay, well, this is like tattoos. The one that they showed was a barcode on the back of a neck of a young girl.
Okay.
My question
Disturbing.
is, when's the last time you heard of something like that?
That one
did that?
Yeah, that one hasn't come up to my specific notice, but I will say that the trend of marking or tracking even within the criminal organizations here is something I have been aware of. So it's disturbing, make no mistake, but I guess I can't say I'm surprised given both the interest in getting their money and otherwise lack of regard for the individuals they're dealing with on the part of these criminal organizations. So again, disturbing, but maybe not entirely surprising that this step has gone forth. That one had escaped my notice, I'll freely admit.
Well, I'm surprised that it hasn't been nationally put out because the last time I heard something like this was Nazi Germany. And before that was slavery in the United States. They used to brand their slaves.
Again, I'm going to stick with my analysis of disturbing, definitely.
Well, who do you think is doing that? Do you think it's the white wing people doing that? Is those people that are branding these people coming across, or is it people from Mexico that's doing it?
I'm going to say this defies political categorization here and goes more on the criminal, not criminal spectrum here because, yeah, I wouldn't put this past the cartels doing that kind of activity.
Yeah, it's people from Mexico. That's what I'm thinking. Mexican cartels, the drug cartels. And
yeah,
they're making more money bringing people across, basically peddling in people, or what is that called? Human trafficking?
Yep.
They're making more money doing that than they are selling drugs. So that's not the white Republicans doing it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
fair enough.
Another question. I understood that yesterday that you got your first class or training in the method of CRT, critical race theory.
I guess you could call it that. Yeah.
By a guy called Eric. Have you ever heard of Malthusian ethics? A guy named John Robert Mathis?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have.
You have? Okay. Malthusian ethics, just a short version of it, is basically there's too many people on the earth and we need to get rid of them. Okay. And that's what that shooter from El Paso on the August 3rd, he was taught Malthusian ethics because he thought the population of the earth was getting too big. No, maybe it was because he thought they were all, no more Hispanics, but only whites should come across the border. But I don't know. But that is what he had on his personal, what do they call that? Where they make a list
the manifesto.
Of things.
Yeah.
Manifesto. Yes. And other people that have that was people like Margaret Sanger from Planned Parenthood.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Germans again in the final solutions in Nazi Germany.
Don't think it was so much. Well, I mean, there's definitely basis in it there. Not so much as there's too many people. We need to eliminate some, but more in that case, there's too many of certain people, so we need to have more of us, which is, going to find myself opposed to that each and every time it comes up here. Tell you what, we got to take that last break in order to be able to finish out the show here. So appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one, and we'll be back after this break. Tell you what I got coming up for you on the program. More here on Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for slowing for an accident reported on Lee Trevino northbound, north of Vista del Sol at Vista Lago Place. You could use Loma Land as an alternate route. Watch for police activity reported on Gateway North just past Montana at La Luz Avenue. Approach with caution. Fire crews are staged for a medical emergency. Gateway West at George Dieter. You could take Esther Lama to Trudia Lane to get around that one. That's your traffic.
This report is sponsored by Audible. This fall, find everything you love listening to on Audible. From memoirs and true crime to celebrities and sci-fi, Audible is the home of storytelling, audiobooks, podcasts, and originals. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com.
New volunteer training at the Children's Grief Center starts Saturday, October 15th and 22nd from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Both days are required. You will train to be a group facilitator leading support groups for children, teens, and adults to assist children and families to heal through loss. There is a $25 criminal background check fee. Volunteers most suited for our mission will be accepted. Call 532-6004 for a reservation or email alice@cgcelpaso.org. The Children's Grief Center looks forward to hearing from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso. Apparently got to turn off the video during the break there. More transparent than usual. Anyway, and telling you what we got coming up for you on the show. Stephanie Seifert is out of town this week, but we'll be checking in still with our news partners there at KFOX 14 on some of the special reports they got coming out. So still a focus in its own right on the in-depth reporting and such, and a whole lot more, including some of the segments that they have featured on that you can all chime in on, some of the Carpe Diem stuff. So thank you everyone who did tune in, call, and comment, participate in the show. We'll again, of course, do it tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m., as we do every Monday through Friday. So if we weren't able to get to you on the phone line, don't, of course, forget about the Talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app or the pound 250 system. That's still up. You just got to dial pound 250 on your phone, call it as a number, and then say the keyword Talk El Paso when prompted. So a whole lot more. And yes, I know a very little hablo muy poco de español, but I mean, we're an English language station, so don't worry, we'll keep doing that as much as we can. But we got to end it there for today. So I want to thank everyone again that did tune in, call, and comment, participate in the show in any way, even if you're just spurring conversations in your own life, so much the better. So in the meantime, stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for slowing for an accident reported on Lee Trevino northbound, north of Vista del Sol at Vista Lago Place. You could use Loma Land as an alternate route. Watch for police activity reported on Gateway North just past Montana at La Luz Avenue. Approach with caution. Fire crews are staged for a medical emergency. Gateway West at George Dieter. You could take Esther Lama to Trudia Lane to get around that one. That's your traffic.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
I loved playing high school sports. I loved the competition, the camaraderie, the bands, the crowds, all the pageantry, and I wanted to keep playing. But I graduated. No colleges called, and neither did the pros. So To stay close to the game I loved, I decided to become a high school official. You know, a referee. When I played high school sports, I learned the importance of integrity, good sportsmanship, and respect for the rules. Now, as a high school official, I get to help model these same values to others. Maybe the colleges and the pros didn't call, but the kids in Texas did. And now, I'm enjoying the competition, the camaraderie, the bands, the crowds, and all the pageantry of high school sports all over again.
This message presented by the Texas University Interscholastic League and the Texas High School Athletic
News
Directors
on the hour
Association.
and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. After Saudi Arabia's decision to team up with Russia to cut oil production, President Biden is reevaluating America's relationship with the kingdom. Lisa Taylor has more.
The move to slash oil would help Russian President Vladimir Putin's government and may raise gas prices in the U.S. National Security Council official John Kirby said on CNN Biden is disappointed by the OPEC